defined and confined only to the area of airports and airplanes. But there is much more to that ecosystem. And the ladies that we have recognized today, awarded today, are only a drop in the ocean in terms of the contribution of our ladies in terms of the mainstream of civil aviation. And India has had a long history of civil aviation, ladies and gentlemen. While I was going through the privatization of Air India, and we have the former CMD of Air India with us in the dais as well, now in his capacity as Secretary Civil Aviation. But Air India started way before India's independence. That was the pioneering capability of our people, the entrepreneurism. Routes that crisscrossed not only the length and breadth and east and west of India, but international routes. And so the story of India's aviation is a very, very long and cherished story in India. For me, 1932 is a red letter day, when Urmila Parikh ji was the first lady to get a pilot's license. Almost 90 years ago. That was followed up in 1936 when Sarla Thakral flew a gypsy moth solo at the young age of 21 years old. So the ladies that we have seen on the dais today have been following a long, illustrious history of civil aviation by ladies in India, by women in India. And as I said before, that this is not being confined only to pilots and ladies and women at airports. We flew our all-women crew, the first in the world, mind you, not the first in India, in 1985. And apart from scaling the skies, at the grassroots level, we had our first maintenance engineer. And there are many anecdotes like this in the book that has been released by Captain Manisha Puri. It is a book that every avid aviator must go through. And the title is very apt, From Saris to Stripes. And it talks about the ascendancy of women in civil aviation. And therefore it doesn't surprise me that in our country, with such a rich history of women in the area of civil aviation, 15% of our pilots today are women. And that by itself is not a surprising statistic if we look at India in isolation. But if you look at the globe, where the average is only 5%, we are 3 times the number of the global average at 15%. But that begs the question. When we have amongst us as well lady pilots like Zoya Agarwal, who flew Bangalore to San Francisco, the longest flight. So endurance, capability, and therefore that begs the question, that is 15% good enough? And my answer to that is a flat no. And the reason is that the odds that you have overcome, the stereotypes that you have surpassed, the pressure of performance that you have endured, has been extremely daunting. You have pierced every glass ceiling. But today, we need to shift the rubric and the paradigm. And I firmly believe that there must come a day in India where this 15% must reach a minimum of 50% of pedagogy, curriculum, early years, access to STEM education. Those walls need to be brought down. And along with that, I firmly believe that today we have a fifth of our students who are attending flying training schools. I've spoken about this at length many a time, and the fact that our secretary said is that our aviation sector is going to be not a growing, but I would use the word galloping sector. And I have said this many a time that I believe in the next decade or two, the backbone of infrastructure in India is going to move very strongly towards civil aviation. We transport roughly about 144 million people today. We have a CAGR of almost 10.6%. Almost double that of railways in terms of growth potential. And therefore, we need to train our pilots. We have now come out with a new FTO policy. We're looking at setting up 9 new FTOs in 5 new cities. Most of our pilots go abroad for training. There is an outgo of foreign exchange. Our capability to create an ecosystem within India. That period has passed us where we look at only airports and airline operators. We need to create that civil aviation ecosystem in India. And I've been in dialogue with many of our industry proponents. All those legs need to be firmly placed in India. Whether it is MROs, whether it is FTOs, whether it is cargo, whether it is ground handling. And I firmly believe that with the proliferation of flying training organizations in India, that will unleash another avenue for our ladies and our women to participate in a much greater context in the area of civil aviation. I believe that our airlines are doing a tremendous job in terms of creating a healthy workplace environment for our women. Whether it is creches, maternity leaves, all of those structures. But I think we need to move beyond that. We need to create an environment which is not only gender neutral, but which looks at an equal responsibility on men as well as women in terms of the family environment. And therefore, case in point, why do we look at the concept of only maternity leave? We must also look at the concept of paternity leave, where men must also partake in the responsibility of bringing up children at home. And therefore, that mental shift has to happen. We must recognize differences and reimagine the fundamentals of ethics in the workplace. And therefore, I believe that in life, equity is more important than equality. It's a very nuanced approach. But I think the time has come to be able to recognize that. It is not a fight for equality, but it is a fight for equity. And that's the environment that we need to create. I believe that we in government, under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, our fight for equity, our fight for equality is the clear underpinning of ensuring that every young man and woman in our country participates in ensuring the progress of our great nation. So on this day, I'd like to congratulate and salute our women in civil aviation, and may you fly high and emblazon the trail for many men to follow in your wake. Thank you very much.